Hello everyone, can you all hear me? Students, can you all hear me?
Yes, madam.
You can properly hear my sound, right? Okay, so we are going to start the session. Hello everyone, and hope you all are doing well. So today you have a very important session. So as an undergraduate, right, at the end of the your degree program, at the latter part, you have to do your research, your dissertation, right? So when we are doing dissertation, it's not just for an academic purpose, but the purpose of doing research is to contribute new knowledge to the existing literature. And also through that, we are going to solve problems in the environment through our research. So conducting a research is very much important as an academic and as an undergraduates as well. So when we are conducting a research, there is a standard process to follow, right? So in that standard process, we have to do certain steps in order to complete the research. Say for an example, we have to have an introduction. Under that, we have to have a background of the study, a problem statement, and especially objectives. Likewise, not only that, we have to critically revise or critically analyze the literature as well. Then methodology, data analysis, and also you have to present conclusions and your findings. So in this process, mainly we identify main concepts. Those are introduction, literature review, methodology, data analysis part, and conclusion part. Actually, those are the five chapters you have to complete when you are doing your research. So I think you already got some idea about introduction chapter, and today I'm going to discuss about this literature review. Unlike introduction or a methodology, many students, even some academics, right, they simply neglect this importance of this doing literature review. Many of them are doing this literature review for the sake of doing it, right? But you have to understand as an undergraduate importance of doing this literature review and why we need to review this literature and what kind of additional things, additional gain we can obtain by doing this literature review. Right? So, writing a proper literature review or writing a good literature review is not just an easy task. It requires a lot of energy, lot of time commitment, and many more things. So, today you will understand how this literature review is important and how you are going to write a proper literature review. So, moving on to the next. These are the intended learning outcomes or intended learning objectives that I want to cover, right? So, you will understand what is literature review and then why we need to do this literature review and important points of reviewing literature and how to review literature in practice. So, moving on to the next. So, first we'll discuss what is this literature review. So, after identifying a specific problem to address, at the introduction chapter, under the problem statement, you have to analyze or you have to gather knowledge, or you have to do a background study about your research problem. So this literature review facilitates for you to understand what other people, right, what other people think about this problem or the same kind of problem. And of course, you can gain understanding about your field of study through this literature review. Therefore, it is really important to have some kind of a background knowledge or background understand about your field of study. Say for an example, if you are going to analyze about consumer purchase intention, you should have understanding about consumer behavior. Different theories applicable for the consumer behavior. What are the previous scholars found about this purchase behavior in the consumers? And also, what are the negative points or what are the positive points they have mentioned likewise. So that facilitates for you to gain a clear, a concise understanding about your field of study. Therefore, reviewing literature is really important. So, significance your research will inevitably judge in relation other people's research and their findings. So that's why when we are guiding, when we are asking for a student to come up with a topic, we just ask them always, go read, search literature, and go and find good research articles. Because we always care or we always consider what other people's think about this research topic, what other people done in relation to your field of study. So it gives kind of a direction or a map, a roadmap for you to analyze further about what you are going to find out. So it will establish a clear understanding for you to do your research in future. So this is why we need to do a literature review. Not only that, there are certain other so many advantages are there in the are there when we are doing a literature review. So when we are moving on to the next, the item you read and write about will enhance your subject knowledge and help you to clarify your research question and objectives. So, without having any understanding about your field of study, you cannot understand your research question and objectives properly. So, if you want to clearly identify what is the real problem you are going to address, first, of course, you have to do a literature review. You have to carefully go through the existing literature, and you have to selectively gather the required knowledge regarding your field of study, and you have to read all these things. Then only you can get a clear understand about your research problem and objectives as well. And another important thing is there. So research should be something new, right? Research should be a unique one. So if the same person, if for the same topic, somebody else, if already found it, so there is no point to do it again. That's why we are always telling you to come up with a new research topic or come up with the new concepts. So, by reviewing a literature review, you will be understand that there is no any repetitive works regarding what you are going to analyze. So, it is a kind of a additional thing that we can gain through this literature review. So, mainly, this is the purpose of doing literature review. And literature. So, we have two terms here, literature and review. So literature is something we call a existing body of knowledge. It is very vast. We cannot see any boundaries or scope for this literature. අපි කියනවා නිකන් මුහුදේ වතුර වගේ තමයි literature කියලා කියන්නේ. So we cannot even count. There is a vast body of literature available in existing body of knowledge. So that is literature. What we are doing here is reviewing literature. So what do you mean by reviewing? Yes? What do you mean by reviewing? Any idea? So as a researcher, you have to review the literature. That means you have to carefully read the content and you have to highlight some important points which are related to your field of study. And you are going to critically analyze that literature. So critically analyzing part is there when we are reviewing a literature. That is really important. We are not just stating what other people mentioned or other people found. It is not the way of doing a literature review. අනිත් කට්ටිය කියලා තියෙන දේ as it is පිළිගන ඒක අපි ස්ටේට්මන්ට් එකක් විදිහට අපේ රිසර්ච් එකේ ස්ටේට් කරන එක නෙමෙයි අපි මෙතනදී බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. We have to critically analyze this literature. So critically analyzing means we have to understand what they have mentioned and we have to critically analyze it. We have to understand what are the positive points they have mentioned, what are the negative points, right? And then we have to provide our own opinion regarding what they have found, what they have mentioned. Then we can just put our opinion in our literature. So many students, they are doing this common mistake. They just as they are doing literature review, what they are doing is they are just reading the content and copying the same content into your research as a literature. It's not the way of doing literature, right? Even sometimes you may we identify them as copied students. So this is not we are expecting under the literature review. So what you have to do is you have to critically analyze the things that they have mentioned and you have to write your own opinion by highlighting their positive sides and also negative sides. It's okay to mention some negative aspects about what previous scholars have done. It's okay. That's why we are reviewing. So therefore, we identified as literature review as a process. And there what we are doing is critically reviewing the literature. Hope this thing clear to you, right? So moving on to the next. What you need to consider before reviewing the literature, right? So before reviewing the literature, these are some of prerequisites you should fulfill. So first thing is you should know what you are going to do. You should have a kind of a proper field of study, an objective to achieve, and a problem to solve. If not, just going a literature, just If you're going to review literature, there is no point. Right? අපි කියනවා නැවියෙක්ට නම් යන මුහුදකට ගියාට පස්සේ යන දිශාවක් තියෙන්න ඕන. අන්න ඒ වගේ you should have a proper objective to achieve by doing literature review, and then a problem objective to achieve, and also a problem to solve. And then you need to understand the main purpose of reviewing literature as well. Why we need to do this literature? Just to earn marks? No. Just to gain clear understand about your field of studies, and then it will provide a roadmap for you to further analyze your research. So these are the then prerequisites you should follow when doing literature. So what to keep in your mind in literature review, right? So it is very important to have a clear understanding about your field of study. That is a one prerequisite. And when you are doing literature review, there are two things that you should remember. If you miss these two important things, of course, you may face a big trouble, right? And even as academic supervisor, I always guide my students also to follow these two things. Those are really important. The first thing is you have to add your in-text citations when you are doing a literature review. And the second thing is list of references according to APA style referencing guidelines. So if you are new to the research context, this may be difficult, somewhat difficult for you to understand. But when we are doing any kind of a scholarly work, and if we are going to get, or if we are going to put others' knowledge into our research work, we always have to cite it, right? We always have to put citations of those authors. And based on the citations, at the end of the document, we are preparing list of references. So those two things are really important. But many of students, what they are doing is they are just putting the context and they are simply ignoring of doing these citations. Later on, what happens? They may not have any idea about who are the authors, where I took this from, and all the things going to be a mess up. Therefore, the very first thing when you are starting your literature review, cite the same authors and all the details in the same time. ඒ වෙලේම එතනින් අපි රිසර්ච් ආටිකල් එකකින් ජර්නල් එකකින් ගත්තා නම් ඒ වෙලෙම සයිට් කරන්න. ඒ වෙලෙම සයිටේෂන්ස් දාලා වැඩේ ඉවර කරන්න. So when we are doing research citations, we always have to follow APA referencing style. So for the social science research and for the management studies research, we always follow APA referencing style. So there are some YouTube videos and other materials you can use for to gain understanding about how to do this APA referencing. So these two are very important, because under the literature review, we are citing or we are taking the what other people mentioned about this story, this study. So it's not just your pure work. Therefore, when you are doing a literature review, it is must to put these citations and at the end references. So what is the difference between these references and bibliography? Any idea what you should follow, reference or bibliography? Yes? Any idea, students? What you should follow? So, as a management undergraduate, we all always ask you to follow references instead of bibliography. So, reference is kind of a summary about these scholarly works that you have followed. Just we are mentioning their names with initials, their topic of the journal or a book, and then but where it published and the year. Those are the main things. But when it comes to bibliography, it is a kind of a lengthy information about scholarly works. So we do not want that much of information. We just want to have some kind of summary, some kind of brief understanding about the scholarly works. Therefore, we always follow references. Therefore, keep in mind you are strictly prohibited to use the term of bibliography. You have to follow references when you are citing scholarly works. And moving on to next, therefore, it is important to note that there is a link between these two elements, which indicate that the author and the given date given in your text citation, and you must correspond to the author and date given the start of your list of reference entry. So remember always that you have to put your references on time, right? And the information you are putting as a references must be accurate, right? So this is called author date system. So we are checking with dates when you are doing citation and when you have given these details. So that is called author date system. These are actually some additional points that I want to highlight before going to the a session of how to write a literature review, because many students doing this common mistake. They are simply ignoring this citation part. So I hope you will not doing that mistake again, and you will put your citation on time when you are doing a literature review. Clear? So now we have come to the another important part when you are doing referencing. So there is three terms to follow when you are doing referencing. So when citing and referencing, you need to follow RARC model. ARC of successful writing and reference model. So as I mentioned you, when you are doing citation and referencing, the information you are adding to your document should be accurate, that represent A in our ARC model. So you have to be very accurate about the sources, and then the topics that you are including, and the year publishing details. So when you are including these details, so those details should be very accurate. And also another recommendation is that when you are selecting different sources and different outsourced items for reviewing literature, always follow standards or always use quality works. What I'm referring here as quality works, because anybody can do any kind of research and they can publish it, but many of them are not in a quality, not in quality standards. So when you're going to do a literature review for your study, you have to understand quality research works, quality secondary data sources which published in existing body of literature. So for that, you can use, of course, index journals, well-reputed journals, and good publishers who publish quality works. That is also another important thing that you need to remember when you are doing a literature review. And moving on to the next, what represent are rigorous. So checking that only each and every source you have cited, including the list of references, and that the two elements are connected. The starting with the same author and the date. So you have to be very rigorous enough about your research work, what you have doing, and the information should be matched with each other. And the final one is consistent. We identified consistent as a golden rule. So you cannot use two different, say for an example, you cannot use two different styles for your citations. One for APL style, one for Harvard style, not like that. You have to be very consistent enough in every citation you are putting for your document. That is called as consistent. So consistent also should be there when you are citing your research. Right? Okay. So hope these things clear to you. Now, another important part. Sources for literature review. It is not prohibited to use only journal publications for literature. So this existing body of literature consists with different sources. So first you should understand where I can gather the sources for or the resources to doing my research, literature review. Of course, you can download what we call journal publications or research articles through the internet. But that is not only the source that you can use for literature review. Other than that, library is one of important source because many of well-reputed journals, they are not making their journal publications freely available in the internet. So, but many of libraries, they are having access to these well-reputed journals. So, of course, rather than the internet, I recommend you to go for the library and search different well-reputed journals, index journals, and there you can find more literature, more body of knowledge regarding your field of study. So if you cannot access to the library, then internet is also a good one. But you cannot go through the 100% available knowledge through the internet because many of them are not freely available. If not, you have to pay for it and you have to get the access. And then what are the other sources? Using secondary data, right? Some of published reports like central bank report and some of other government approved and well recognized secondary data sources are available. So of course you can use those data as a source or resources for your literature review. And the information from the interviews being gathered also can be used as one important source for doing literature review. Other than that, what are the other sources available? Books, magazines, journals, newspaper, conference proceedings, doctoral dissertations, master theses, government publications, likewise, different sources are there. එහෙනම් මම හිතනවා ඔයාලට පැහැදිලි මේ journal articles, research papers විතරක්ම නෙමෙයි අපි literature review කියන්න ගන්නේ. තව ගොඩාක් sources අපිට හම්බ වෙනවා අපි literature review එකක් කරන්න යනකොට. Clear? Right. Now we have come to the one of important part of today's discussion. That is, what is the purpose of reviewing literature? At the beginning of this session also, I have mentioned few of importance or purpose of reviewing this literature. So now we can discuss in detail why we need to do this reviewing literature or literature review. So the first thing is to avoid reinventing the same thing. As I told you, the research should be new. The research should be unique. If we doing the same thing over repeatedly, it's not create any additional knowledge to the existing body of literature. So that's why we always ask you to come up with new concepts. එකම දේ ආපහු කිරීම වැඩක් නැහැ. So how you can identify there is research for this topic already? Some people did, or some people found that the problem for this, a solution for this problem. Of course, by reviewing a literature. Only by reviewing literature, only we can understand that the things are repeating. So, to avoid reinventing the same thing, you have to do a literature review. And next, to find out what other scholars have done. So, you have to have a clear understanding about what you are going to do. So, then, of course, you have to review literature. And you can understand methods and approach to follow, or methods and approaches related to your study. So suppose you are going to do a study regarding we call brand, customer base brand equity, right? So you are going to study customer base brand equity. So you may not have idea about how I'm going to analyze, or what method I'm going to follow to analyze this customer base brand equity. Then what you have to do is you have to review the literature, and then you can understand what other people or other scholars, what methods that they have used to analyze customer base brand equity. The same method you also can follow. So then it is important to have a literature review to understand what methods, either qualitative method or a quantitative method. If not, we say deductive approach or inductive approach, which approach we should use, and what methods, right? Are we going to conduct interviews, or are we going to do this research by distributing questionnaires? If I'm happen to distribute questionnaires, what kind of questions I should ask from them? All the things can be found by reviewing literature, right? So when you are doing research, you cannot make questions by yourself, right? So you have to follow validated and reliable set of questions when you are setting your questionnaire. So you can understand what should I include into my questionnaire based on the literature review. And if you happen to do a kind of a qualitative study, right? Again, it will provide guideline, right? What kind of interview I should conduct, what kind of questions I should ask from that interview likewise. And if you happen to do a quantitative study, of course you have to think about what hypothesis I should develop and what kind of variable I should take as independent variables and dependent variables, right? So all the proper details are available in the literature. What we have to do is we have to go and we have to study, we have to read it carefully. And yes, identify measurements and operational definitions. You have to use literature. Right? In this diagram also it explains what are the uh, importance of doing or the purpose of doing a literature review, right? Another important thing is you can identify gaps in literature, right? So what do you mean by identify gaps in literature? So as I told you, when we are when we are reviewing this literature, we can identify if the same thing, uh, if they already did it, we can identify. So then we can identify some gaps. කවුරුත් කරලා නැති ඒවා අපිට හොයා ගන්න පුළුවන්. අන්න ඒවා තමයි අපි literature gap කියලා කියන්නේ. So you can identify those gaps in the literature. That may be another reason under the problem statement. You can mention it as another reason for doing this research. There is a lack of existing body of knowledge. Or we can say another term, there are limited studies. There are few studies have been conducted for this area. That is literature gap. And you can find other people who work in this field of study, and you can identify major seminal works that they have done, right? Of course, for the methodology they have followed, and especially what are the conclusions that they have made regarding this field of study. එයාලා අන්තිමට මොනවද හොයාගෙන තියෙන්නේ මේ වගේ රිසර්ච් එකක් කරලා. That is also really important when you are doing your fourth chapter, data analysis and presentation. You have to compare the results that you have obtained from your study with previous scholarly works, and you can compare. So I found this as a positive. These scholars also found that these are having positive relationships or positive impact. Likewise, so you can make some conclusions, right? When you are reviewing literature, right? Under the discussion part, right? Under the discussion part, it's really important, right? What they have make as a conclusion, what you are going to conclude. If it is matched, then it's okay. If it is not matched, then you have to find reason for it. That's what we are doing under the discussion part. For that, also you have to review this literature. So it will provide a context for your own research. And another important thing is you can understand, you can identify some theories, some concepts related to your field of study. Say for an example, if we are going to analyze consumer behavior, say for an example, consumer purchase intention or consumer buying behavior, likewise, there are certain accepted theories like theory of planned behavior, theory of recent action. ඊට පස්සේ අපි ගමුකෝ මොන හරි technological related දෙයක් කරනවා කියලා ඔයාලා, like adoption to online banking as a research, then you can use technology acceptance model. Likewise, in the literature there are number of existing theories, well-established theories are there. So you can use those theories as well for your research work to further enrich the reliability of your study. Right? අපි කියන රිසර්ච් එකේ බර වැඩි කරගන්න ඒ වගේ theories අපිට පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. That also one of important of doing this literature review. The main point is confirm that your contribution is new and it is differ from everyone else. That is the main purpose of doing literature review. Right? Apart from that, another purpose of doing this research literature review is to find the approach that you should follow. Right? So I already discussed this thing. So deductive approach and inductive approach. So deductive approach always goes to the testing data, and inductive approach always follow developing theories and explore things, comes as an inductive approach. So quantitative studies it comes under the deductive approach, and qualitative studies comes under the inductive approach. So here the selecting the approach for your study as a research methodology, it's really important, right? I think in next workshop, you can get clear understanding about this methodology part. So I will just brief you, right? How you are going to do this study. We discuss under the methodology part, right? Methodology. So there are main two approaches are there for you to go with, either deductive approach or inductive approach. Deductive approach mainly comes under the, quantitative studies mainly comes under the deductive approach, and qualitative research comes under the inductive approach. So you should make a decision whether I'm going for an inductive approach or a deductive approach. So from how you are going to make this decision? By reviewing the literature. That is also one important point of doing literature review. Clear? Moving on to the next, some of other purposes are also there for doing or for reviewing the literature. So it will help you to refine, clarify further your research question and objectives, and highlight research possibilities. Some of research are there, research topics are there. It's very difficult, or there may be not any possibility of doing the research for different context. Say for an example, if we do a kind of a research regarding rare disease, very few people are suffering from it. Sometimes there may be no any possibility of doing that. And if we are doing a research regarding a kind of an innovative thing which not introduced yet, then again there may be a less possibility of doing research. So those things also can be identified whether this is possible or not to study by reviewing literature. And you can discover explicit recommendations for your findings, right? So that's why I told you regarding the discussion. So for your findings, you can see this is matched with my findings are matched with other scholar works or not. That recommendations, so that recommendation further improve the reliability and accuracy of your findings. If you match, if you compare your research findings with other scholars' findings, and yes, avoid repeating works, and then you can discover appropriate approaches, strategies, and techniques for you to follow when you are doing research. So I think you are clear with this, why we should consider why we need to review this literature. Not just for doing, or not just of on not just to what we call අපි කියන්නේ මොකද්ද, ඒක කිසිම අරමුණක් නැතුව කරන්නන් වාලේ එහෙම කරනවා නෙවෙයි. So there should be a reason for doing this literature, not just sake of doing it. You should understand why I need to doing this. So when to start, right? As first step, what you have to do when you are going to write your literature, just any idea what you have to do at the very first? So now you have a topic to study, and you identified the problem statement as well. What is the problem I'm going to analyze? And then you are going to do a literature review. So the first thing is, as a students, you must remember that the first step of doing a literature review is gather selective literature related to your field of study and read. Reading, critically reading on the selected sources. The one thing that you have to remember that is be selective, right? අර මං කිව්වා වගේ literature කියලා කියන්නේ මුහුදේ වතුර වගේ. සීමාවක් අපිට හොයන්න බෑ. So you will not be able to read every article in the literature. Or sometimes every article written on your field of studies may be even. So you have to be very selective. You have to exactly select what kind of sources which are really related to my study. It may be 5 or 10, 15, 20, likewise. Right? For your level, I mean for the undergraduates. But when it comes to masters, we ask to read at least 100 papers. And when it comes to PhD, more number of pages we have, more number of scholarly works we have to read. But for your study, at least you have to read maybe 20, right? 25 articles is good amount. So what I want to highlight here is, you are not required to read each and every article which is written for your field of study. No, it's not possible even. That's why we always guiding our students to go for the article which are published in recent years, maybe within 5 years, because it's no point to read all articles because the environment has changed. Now the thing here is, 1990 ගණන් වල 2000 ගණන් වල මම කියන්නේ 2000 දශකයේ මුල් කාලේ වගේ ගත්තොත් එහෙම ඒවා අපිට දැන් වර්තමානයට ගැලපෙන්නේ නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. So is it need to read the 2 old articles for doing literature review? No. Therefore you need to be very selective, and you have to pick recent scholar articles which are published as a source material for your literature. And then after selecting the appropriate articles, appropriate number of articles which are related to your study, then you can do this literature review. So as I told you, doing literature review is not copying what others mention, what the others have stated in their documents. You have to critically comment on the literature review, and also you have to make your own voice by confirming the contribution that they have generated to this field of study. Right? So this is how we are doing literature review. So what do you mean by critically commenting? Hmm? Critically commenting? We have to be very authentic, very genuine, and we have to consider ourselves as a third party, right? So we are not just supporting or just only highlighting the positive points in the existing literature, or not only the negative points. We have to have a balance between these positive comments and negative comments. And then what we have to do is we have to provide our own voice. What is, as a researcher, this is my opinion regarding this, right? Say for an example, when it comes to marketing, we'll say guerrilla marketing, right? Some people may say that it's not good to implement guerrilla marketing practices. But in other hand, some scholars may mention that it's good. Guerrilla marketing is good concept. Company can gain more revenue from using this guerrilla marketing concepts. Likewise. So then you have to cite both positive things and negative things regarding this field of studies. And finally, you can have your own voice. What you think about this one? Say for an example, we'll take another example as marketing myopia. සමහර කෙනෙක් කියලා තියෙනවා marketing myopia කියන්නේ customer ට හොඳ නැහැ. It's bad for the customers. ඒක අපේ customers ලව රවට්ටනවා. Some may state that no, it's good, right? It's positive to the customers. So likewise. So by getting those positive points and negative points, at the same time, you have to provide your own voice by confirming how to contribute to the existing knowledge. So this is what we are expecting from you when you are doing this literature review. It's very important to remember that. Not just copying things from the scholar journals or the publication is not the way of doing literature review. And these things are also important. So you cannot mention everything that they have mentioned regarding this topic. Therefore, what you have to do is you have to summarize. You have to identify key terms that they have mentioned. Only the key terms, key findings, key opinions. And as a summary, you can put for your, it can be put for your research. And synthesis. What do you mean by synthesis? Yes, synthesis. Any idea? Synthesis? Yes, synthesis. What do you mean by synthesis? Yes. Synthesis is somewhat combining two different things. We call that synthesis. So what we are combining here under the literature? Yes. So you have to organize literature into logical arguments by combining both strengths and if not both intellectual things that you have going and also the emotional things, right? When we are combining intellectual knowledge with emotional aspects, we call it as synthesis. That is also one important thing when you need to keep in mind when you are doing literature. And critically analyze, critics in analysis, right? So you have to point out both strength and weaknesses of previous work. මං කිව්වේ අර positive දේවල් සහ negative දේවල්. Both strength and weaknesses of previous knowledge, previous work, you have to highlight. And finally, provide your voice. Authorizes. Provide your voice. It's really important. Provide opinion about what you think about this. It is also really important. Right. So as I told you, one of important thing that you should do before reviewing the literature is reading. Right. So you have to be very skillful reader before writing a literature. Reading is really important. That provide a clear kind of a idea about how to do this literature review. So some skill set is there, checklist of skills to be practiced for effective reading before doing literature. So previewing is one important thing that you should master as a skill. So by looking at the around before going to the in detail, if you can just go through the things very quickly, that is called reviewing. It's also important as a skill, one skill that effective reader should follow. And annotating, that means a dialogue with yourself, author, and the issues and ideas. So you have to be very careful. When you are reading, we are not asked to agree for the 100% for what you are reading. That is not the thing. So you have to have a kind of arguments with yourself, with the authors, and regarding the issues and different ideas. And then it's important to have summarizing skills and comparing and contrasting skills. Because when we are reviewing literature, we may find 2-3 articles for same research topic. So if so, you should be able to understand, you should have a skill to compare and contrast each and every paper which is written for same context or same topic. That is also one important thing when you need to develop as a skill when you are going to read your literature for your literature review. Okay, so what is meant by critical reading? Just reading without having any kind of a idea is not critical reading. අපි ගැන අරන් තව එකක් තියෙනවා මොකද මේ නවකතා කියවනා වගේ හරිම ඉමෝෂනල් වෙලා කියවන එකක් නෙමෙයි අපි critical reading කියලා කියන්නේ. පෙළ පොතක් කියවන වගේ මුකුත්ම අදහසක් නැතුව කියවන එකක් නෙවෙයි. So then what do you mean by this critical reading? Yes. So first you should understand the purpose of reading that maybe a book or a journal article or maybe any kind of a report or any kind of other source. So first you have to understand why I am reading this. What is the importance of reading this journal article for my research? Is it practically valuable to read this? Or can I gain something from this in relation to my research topic? That's why I told you, be selective. Before reviewing the literature, you have to be very selective for the sources that you are using for your research. Next, what is the author trying to do in writing this? How valuable writing for your purpose? Say for an example, if that journal article published for what we call inductive approach under qualitative study, so and you are going to do a quantitative study. So how to what extent it related to your study, you have to think about, right? And what author trying to do in writing this. Say for an example, author, the purpose of publishing that document, we'll say a government report, is to do another thing, not to do a research. Then you have to think about what extent I can relate this report to my study. And of course, you have to think about the quality of the work as well, right? As I mentioned you earlier. And what is the writer saying? Is that relevant to what I want to find out? So if you are stating that too much contrasting as a literature review, which are not totally matched with your study, it is no point. You have to think, you have to find relatable things like theories, concepts that are related to your study. Then only we can have a proper literature review, right? That's why we are not mentioning everything under the literature review. And how convincing is what the author saying, arguments that they have mentioned, including evidences, right? So those evidences can be used as a proper source of for you to use, right? So these things you have to consider when you are reading your selected sources for your literature review. It's very important to be very effective reader before writing the literature. It's really important. You should remember that. Just going through the document is not enough. You have to go in deep. Each and everything that they have mentioned, what they have written, what they have found out, what is their conclusion. So by looking at that, you can have critically analyzed the strength and weaknesses of that works. And finally, you can provide your own opinion, your own voice regarding those things. And this should be included into your literature review. This is how we are writing a proper literature review. That's why we are calling this as a reviewing literature. Hope you all got clear understand about this. And yes, being a critical in reviewing is therefore a combination of your skills and attitude with which you read. This is where we combine synthesis, right? So if you have a kind of a negative attitude about something, like we say for a book, you have negative attitude. So your attitude formed with your emotions. So with that attitude, you can have a proper, authentic literature. You have to balance your skills with attitude. And combination of your skills and attitude with which you read is very important. The balance of these skills and attitude is really important when we are critically reviewing the literature. So therefore, critically reviewing requires you to have gain topic-based knowledge, background knowledge, understanding regarding a background knowledge, ability to reflect upon and to analyze, and making reasoned judgment, arguing effectively. So you have to argue there. When you are providing your own voice, You may argue. හරි? අර මං කිව්වා වගේ marketing myopia කෙනෙක් හොඳයි කියලා තියෙනවා. Marketing myopia කෙනෙක් හොඳ නැහැ කියලා තියෙනවා. So you can argue. Very few people only mention that marketing myopia is positive, but majority of authors have mentioned that marketing myopia is a negative thing. So then you can argue. Based on that, we can say that marketing myopia is not good. Likewise, you can provide your own judgment, recent judgment, right? හැම අපිට හිතෙන හැම judgment එකක්ම දෙන්න බෑ. There should be a reason, evidence-based judgment, and you can reflect those whole existing knowledge of body through your literature review. And especially when you are reviewing the literature, of course, you have to use different theories, concepts that they have mentioned. So, moving on to the next. So, critical judgment, right? So, what do you mean by critical judgment? Being able to identify the most relevant and significant theories and recognize experts. So, in here, under the critical judgment, you have to use most relevant and significant theories for your study. Then you can make critical judgment. So that is also really important. What are the different concepts associated with the literature? What are the different theories associated with it? What theory says and what scholar articles found. Likewise, you can critically judge the things with the existing body of literature. So according to Dees in 2003, critical judgment means refer to and assess research by recognizing experts in your area. And then you have to consider and discuss research that support and oppose your idea, right? Both supportive ideas you have to bring and also opposite ideas also you have to bring to the discussion and make judgment according to the value of each idea, either positive or a negative. And then you can argue with your valid evidence. And finally, you can make your opinion. So this is how we are reviewing the literature. First, you have to gather knowledge, right? You have to recognize the expert. You have to recognize the theories that they have used, concepts, supportive materials. And then you have to identify support and oppose ideas. You can weight support this. The weight should goes to where? Either supportive side or an opposite side. And with valid evidences, you can justify your argument and you can make your own opinion when you are reviewing the literature. So then there is a simple process to follow. Firstly, your review, then you relate, and finally make your voice. Simply only three process. First, you review. By reading, you reviewing, and then you relate strength and weaknesses or positive sides, negative sides, supportive aspects or opposite aspects. And finally, you can make your own voice regarding what is your opinion. So these three steps is really important. In everywhere, you are going to do a literature review for your study. All right. How to write a literature review? මං හිතන්නේ ගොඩක් කට්ටිය මෙන්න මේක තමයි බලාගෙනම හිටියේ. දැන් අපි මේ කරන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා කතා කරාට හරියටම මේ අපි කියමු නේද ලියන හැටි ගැන දැන් තමයි කතා කරන්න යන්නේ. So firstly, credit your author and then discredit him or her. So first, you have to credit their work, right? highlight the important point, and then discuss the matters not addressed. So at the literature review, we are either a research document. It is a kind of a formal one. So we cannot at the very first we cannot what we call discredit their work. So we can highlight the positive aspects or highlight the important point that they have mentioned, and then only we can discredit this. And when you are writing a literature review, where you can start? Say for an example, you are doing a research regarding green marketing. So when you are doing a green marketing research, is it okay to start your literature review with green marketing? No. You should first write about marketing first. Marketing, and then you can come to the green marketing, because green marketing comes under the marketing. If you are doing a research regarding customer-based brand equity, first you have to think about, you have to discuss about branding. What is branding? What others found about branding? How others define branding? Then you can think about customer-based brand equity, and there is a model in customer-based brand equity, who found it, when it found, and what are the additions of that customer-based brand equity. Likewise, start with a generic one, and then you can be very specific to your point. That is also one important thing that you should remember, right? So for another example, if you are doing a research regarding mobile marketing or mobile advertising, the first thing that you have to think about is marketing, and then you can come with mobile marketing or mobile advertising likewise. And again, you can relate this knowledge, the existing knowledge, the things that you have gathered, to your research questions, even to prove your problem, right? To design your research objectives, and especially to develop your conceptual framework, right? So conceptual framework is really important one as a management undergraduate, because we always ask you to do or draw this conceptual framework. It is a framework which explains the link between your independent variable and dependent variable, right? So the each arrow should have a specific meaning in the conceptual framework. So that specific meaning you can develop only through the literature. හරි අපිට අර conceptual framework එක ඇඳලා ඒකට ඊතල ටිකක් අපිට කැමති කැමති විදිහට දාලා බෑ. ඒ ඊතල එන්නේ කොහෙන්ද? අපි අර හොයාගන්න literature review එකේ. අපි කොච්චරක් ඒවා evidence based prove කරලා තියනවද මේ දෙක අතර සම්බන්ධයක් තියෙනවා කියලා. So then to develop this conceptual framework, obviously you have to use literature, and then operationalize your variables, methodological development. As I told you, you have to have operationalized definition for each and every variable, right? So say for an example, for the marketing, there may be 100 different definitions, right? For a branding, there may be different definitions are there. So one definition, the meaning of one definition may be different from other, right? අපි ගත්තොත් එහෙම අපි ගමුකෝ මොකක් හරි concept එකක් like brand love. So brand love may be defined different scholars in different ways. So which definition is applicable for my study? That is called operationalization definition. So where you can find this exact related definition through the literature review. What you are referring as brand love in your study. So definitions, we cannot have our own definitions. Of course, we have to bring it from the literature. So that is also one important thing. When you are doing literature, you have to think about what are the operational definitions I'm using, and also methodological development is also really important. Right. So how to make your voice? මම අර කියවනේ මුලින් ඉඳන්ම තමන්ගේ දෙයක්ුත් අපි කියන්න ඕනේ. Right? So go back to the review part again. Summarize uncovered areas. Right? So these people have mentioned these things, but they have not discussed these things. The discussion about this concept is really lacking. That gap you can identify it as a point where you can make your own voice. And also how your study different from others. That is also one point is there where you can make your own voice. Right. How to organize your literature review. So I always guide my students to go with the kind of a structure. Right. So reviewing the literature is kind of a difficult task actually. It's not just like easy as writing a methodology. So there are different aspects are there we have to focus. So always follow a structure. You can start with your field of study. මම අර කිව්වා වගේ green marketing නම් ඉස්සෙල්ලා marketing ගැන කතා කරන්න. Then you can come with green marketing concepts. So different theories, concepts associated with the green marketing. Then you can come with your, if you are using kind of a quantitative study, a dependent variable. හරි. Marketing ගැන කතා කරා, green marketing ගැන කතා කරා, theories ඔක්කොම ටික අපි එතනදී කතා කරා. ඊට පස්සේ එන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාලගේ dependent variable එකට. Then finally go with independent variable. That process, that structure you have to follow. Start with very generic topic and come to your specific one. Then you can include all the relatable knowledge, literature regarding that specific knowledge under that. And then you can discuss about your dependent variable based on the supported theories and concepts. And finally, you can review your independent variables if you are following quantitative study. And consider keywords and objectives always. Right? Keywords and objectives related to your study. Say for an example, if we talk about mobile marketing or mobile advertising, there are some keywords. Right, Lamai? Say for an example, it starts from marketing and then mobile marketing, and then in the mobile advertising, so marketing, mobile marketing, and then mobile advertising. And then you can relate the different theories like theory of reason action, theory of planned behavior. And then you can think about your dependent variable, maybe purchase intention, customer attitude, likewise. And you can go with your independent variable. So these keywords, key terms are really important. These are very unique to your field of studies. No one can tell keywords of your field of studies. So you should find the related keywords for your study and then number accordingly and critically comment on the each at the end of the each part by crediting and discrediting things that they have mentioned. Right. So we have come to the last part of the session. So I have gone through the few of your literature you have submitted actually. So these are the actually based on that, these are the common things actually that I want to highlight. And here you have some of further references, further readings, right? Further readings that you can use to further gain understanding about literature review, especially we have Thornhill's research methodology book here, and Sekaran books one is there, and some of other important uh, research methodology books published in the existing literature. So if you want to have further understanding about literature review, you can go through these one. And yes, with that, we have come to the conclusion, final part of this session. So, yes, thank you very much for listening to me and your kind cooperation to this workshop. And final one, so anything regarding what you have done. So, you already submitted your literature. So, if you have any clarifications regarding the things that you want to clarify about what you have submitted, you can ask. I will give you just 1 minute. Yes? Anything to clarify? Right. So I will just summarize about things that we have discussed and the key points actually. So when we are referring the literature review, you have to be good reader first and then review your literature. And the main purpose of reviewing literature is to identify the authenticity of your work. This work is not reinventing again, and to gain some basic understanding. Again, not basic, a deep understanding about what you are going to study. And these are the common mistakes you should avoid when you are reviewing literature. So the first one is incomplete citation. Always reduce the number of incomplete citations and do the citation on time when you are doing the literature review. And always avoid low quality sources when you are reviewing the literature, and be very selective, because we cannot have every knowledge on our study. So be very relatable to your topic and very selectable for your topic, and pick exactly what you want. And finally, don't be over supportive or don't mention over negative things regarding the existing body of literature. Just balance it. You can make positive comments and negative comments both, but not going to the extreme of it. You can balance and you can make your own voice. So this is what actually I want to highlight through this workshop. Seems like there is no any problem regarding the things that I have discussed. So with that, thank you very much for joining today, and hope this one give some idea, some understanding about how to write your literature review chapter. So hope you all have a good day and wish you all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.